Wind worked the metal like a mouth. It slipped through the ribs of a fallen highway overpass and made them sing, thin, reedy notes drawn from bent rebar in the hollow shells of traffic signs. The sound skated across the crater and found the figure lying in its bowl. The immortal opened one eye, light pressed in, colorless and hard, filtered through dust that never quite settled. The sky had the washed-out look of bone left too long in sun. His back was against compacted ash and gravel that still held yesterday's heat. It seeped through his coat in a slow, unpleasant way. Wind again. A long exhale through steel. He pushed himself up. Pebbles clicked and rolled. Something inside his chest listened for heartbeats that were not his. There were none close enough to matter. Only the constant whisper of air through wreckage. The distant cough of something mechanical far away. He rose in a smooth motion, too smooth for a man. His boots found traction on fractured asphalt. A snapped road sign leaned nearby, its paint blistered into scales. The word exit had lost its E and its T, and pointed nowhere. He turned his head. The soundscape sketched the place for him. The wind's pitch changed where the overpass sagged, climbed where metal was exposed, dulled where sand had piled into drifts against concrete pylons. Somewhere under it all, a faint ticking, a rhythmic. Not a clock, not a pulse, a machine gnawing on time. His tongue tasted copper and dust. The air carried an afterscent of old fire and newer rot. A shape twitched near the base of a burned-out sedan. The immortal did not reach for a weapon. He waited. The wind threaded itself through a hole in the car door and made a wet whistle. The shape unfolded. Skin hung in gray folds, hairless, pocked with sores that glowed faintly, as if something had tried to paint light into flesh and failed. Its mouth opened. The sound it made was not a word. It was the sound of a throat that had forgotten what words were. The immortal tilted his head. The creature's steps were wrong, too eager, too loose. He heard joints knock together. He heard breath scrape. Radiation had written its story in the thing's bones. When it lunged, he moved. There was a snap of displaced air, a dull crack as skull met palm. The body folded and slid into the dust, still making noise until the noise stopped. Wind took its place. He looked at his hand. The skin there smoked faintly where the creature's blood had touched him. A sting bloomed, small but real. He flexed his fingers and listened to the sound of it. The tiny complaint of tissue knitting back together, slower than it should have been. He turned in a slow circle. The crater opened onto a stretch of road choked with dead vehicles. Beyond it, a gas station with a rocket sign drooping like a broken flower. The overpass loomed above, its shadow stitched with light where the rebar poked through concrete skin. Everything was rust or gray or the color of bone. A low whine cut across the wind. He lifted his face. Far off, something flew, heavy, loud, its rotors beating air into submission. The noise was disciplined, military. It passed behind a bank of ruined buildings, and the wind swallowed the echo. A bark answered from the other side of the crater. Not the broken throat sound of the gray thing. A living sound, short, sharp. The immortal crouched. Gravel whispered under his heels. At the crater's rim, a dog stood with one paw lifted, ribs moving like bellows. Its fur was the color of dirt and smoke, its ears torn by old fights. One eye clouded white. The other watched him without blinking. They listened to each other. Wind slid through the overpass and made a long sigh. The dog's nose worked. It stepped closer, then stopped. Its tail did not wag. Its mouth stayed closed. Behind them, from nowhere and everywhere, a voice drifted in on the air. And that, my friends, is why you don't drink out of puddles that glow. This is Three Dog, Ow, and you're listening to Galaxy News Radio. The sound came thin and tinny, riding the wind as if the air itself were a speaker cone. Words bent around the metal ribs and found the crater. Bringing you the truth, no matter how bad it hurts. The immortal's brow creased. He had known bards. He had known priests who spoke to cities. This was neither. This was a ghost that used wires. The dog sat. The immortal straightened and took one step toward the road. The wind shifted pitch, rising as it cut through a new angle of rebar. The change pricked at his ears. He froze. Movement on the overpass, not the disciplined flight from before. A man in patchwork armor peered down, rifle barrel wobbling. Another crouched beside him, laughter scraping out in bursts. "Hey!" one of them called, voice riding the wind like grit. "You alive down there?" The immortal did not answer. The rifle spat light. The crack arrived a breath later. Asphalt jumped near his foot. The dog bolted, a blur of muscle and fear. He moved sideways, not fast, not slow. Another shot, another crack. The wind threaded itself through the overpass and carried the sound in pieces. He leapt. The distance closed with a wet sound of air forced aside. He landed on the overpass with a hollow ring. The two men flinched. One dropped his rifle. The other swung something with a blade bolted to it. The immortal caught the haft and twisted. Bone complained. The man went down. The one who had fired scrambled backward, boots scraping. "What are you?" he said, and the wind tore the ends of it away. The immortal put a hand on the man's chest, felt the hammering there. He did not drink, he shoved. The body went over the edge and hit the crater with a sound like a sack of tools. Silence returned in layers. Wind first, then the distant whine of the flying machine, already thinning. Then the radio voice, now muffled by distance and metal. "Hey, and remember, folks, don't let the bad guys keep you from the light." The immortal stood and listened to the place settle. He felt the small burn on his hand fade. He looked down at the road again. The dog had not gone far. It hovered near the gas station, watching him with its one good eye. He dropped from the overpass. The landing made the rebar sing. The wind kept talking. The clicking found him before the smell did. It was a dry insect sound, sharp, fast, irregular, coming from a yellow box half buried in sand beside the red rocket station. Each tick struck the air like a pin. The immortal stood beneath the rocket sign's crooked shadow and let the noise map the space around him. Tick, 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 tick. The wind tried to smooth it out, but the clicks kept their edges. The station's windows were gone. The interior was a cave of grease dark in daylight, the counter sagging under the weight of dust. A rack of long, empty bottles leaned against the wall like a drunk refusing to fall. The smell reached him then. Old fuel, wet rot, and something sour that had once been meat. A shape moved behind the counter. The clicking sped up. He stepped inside. His boots whispered over powdered glass. The yellow box on the floor shrieked now, a swarm of sound trapped in plastic. He crouched and tipped it upright. The needle jittered against its red border. Radiation. The word did not belong to him, but the sensation did. An ache under the skin, like heat remembered by bone. A wet foot dragged across tile. The thing that emerged had been human once. Its face was peeled back into a permanent grin, gums black, teeth small and busy. Its eyes were milked over, reflecting the station's light in dull coins. It wore a jumpsuit with a number stitched over the heart. The cloth clung to it as if ashamed. The clicking went wild. Another came from behind a pump, then another from the service bay where a car's skeleton rested on blocks. They did not rush him. They drifted forward in a loose crescent, drawn by whatever still lived in him. The immortal tilted his head. He listened for heartbeats. They were there, but faint and wrong, each one out of time with the next. A choir without a conductor. He moved. His coat brushed a rack of tools. A wrench fell and rang once on concrete. The sound was clean. The creatures turned toward it with the same hungry interest. He crossed the space between him and the nearest one in a breath. His hand closed around his throat. The skin felt like soaked paper. When he twisted, there was no protest from the neck, only a soft final click as something inside gave up. He dropped it and pivoted. One lunged, jaws working. He caught its wrist and used it to pull the second one off balance. They tangled and fell together, hissing. The Geiger counter screamed. From outside came a bark. Short, sharp, familiar now. "Easy, boy," a voice said somewhere near the pumps. "I got you. I got you." A figure appeared in the doorway, rifle raised. A dog at his heel, ribs moving like bellows. One eye clouded. Dog meat. The immortal turned his face just enough for the man to see it. The man froze. "Don't move," he said. though his finger trembled on the trigger. "Don't move." The clicking from the yellow box filled the space between them. The last creature made it to its feet and staggered toward the sound of the man's voice. The immortal stepped into its path and drove his elbow down. Its skull burst with a dry sound, like wood splitting. Silence fell in pieces. Wind through broken windows. The Geiger counter's frantic chatter. The dog's breathing. The man lowered the rifle an inch. "You Brotherhood?" he asked. "You look wrong for a raider." The immortal did not answer. He walked to the yellow box and kicked it aside. The clicking followed it, fading as it slid under the counter. The man watched him do it. "That thing's been screaming since the bombs," he said. "Means this place is still hot. Means those things keep coming back." The immortal bent and wiped his hand on a strip of cloth torn from the counter. The skin there tingled, slow and stubborn. The dog stepped forward and sniffed his boot. Its tail made one cautious swing. A radio crackled from the man's shoulder. "Knight errant to Lion's Pride. Perimeter clear near Arlington." "Cut it," the man muttered. He looked at the immortal again. "You don't smell like them," he said, "and you didn't flinch when that meter went nuts." The immortal listened past him, out through the station, to the way the wind worried at the rocket sign and made it groan. The man shifted his weight. "Name's Paladin Brandis," he said, though he did not offer a hand. "Brotherhood of Steel." The immortal watched the dog's ear twitch at the ticking under the counter. He stepped back into the light and looked up at the bent rocket. Its paint peeled in scales, red turning to dust. The Geiger counter clicked on, patient and accusing. Brandis followed his gaze. "World ended loud," he said. "Been clicking ever since." The immortal closed his eyes for a moment and let the sound right the place inside him. The hot pockets in the floor, the cool hollow of the service bay, the faint trail of radiation leading back to the road like breadcrumbs of sickness. When he opened them, he walked toward the pumps. The clicking went with him. The bus lay on its side like something hunted there and left. Its windows were punched out, the metal skin blistered and peeled. One wheel still turned when the wind worried at it, a slow, lazy spin that made the axle creak. The immortal stood a few steps away and let the sound arrange the place for him. Flap, flap, flap. A sheet of paper was nailed to the bus's flank with a rusted bolt. The wind caught it and pulled over and over until the corners shredded into white threads. Each tug made a dry, papery snap. He moved closer. Gravel slid under his boots. The dog padded beside him, nose low, ears swiveling to every noise that didn't belong to the wind. The paper was a poster once, bright colors now dulled into dust. A smiling cartoon family stared out from beneath a cracked helmet logo. Beneath them, a word remained clear. Vault Tech. The letters were thick and cheerful, the kind meant to survive weather and fear. The wind lifted the bottom edge and slapped it back against the bus, again and again, as if trying to peel the promise away. Flap, flap. The immortal touched the metal near it. Heat slept inside the rust, released into his palm. He leaned closer and listened past the wind. From inside the bus came another sound, a small skitter, claws or nails tapping on steel. Something breathed in short bursts. The dog growled, low. "Easy," a voice said from behind him. "Those buses got nests sometimes." Paladin Brandis stood with his rifle slung low, not aimed. His armor clinked softly when he shifted. The radio on his shoulder muttered to itself, distant and tinny. "Found you at the station and figured you'd keep walking," Brandis said. "Everyone does." The immortal did not turn. His eyes stayed on the poster. The smiling faces had lost their eyes to sun and grit. The wind lifted the paper higher this time and tore a longer strip free. Flap, flap. "What is this place?" the immortal asked. Brandis followed his gaze. Before, roadside, bus broke down. After, same thing, just quieter. He hesitated. Vault Tech sold people a hole to hide in, said it would last forever. And it did not. Brandis made a sound in his throat that could have been a laugh. "Nothing does." The skittering inside the bus stopped. A rat the size of a boot slid out through a tear in the floor and ran for the culvert. The dog chased it 2 steps and thought better of it. Wind lifted the poster again. The immortal reached up and tore the bolt free. The paper came with it, ripping down the middle. He held the two halves. The smiling family split into strangers. The radio on Brandis's shoulder grew louder, as if offended by silence. And if you're just tuning in, that howl you heard wasn't the wind. Raiders spotted near the old Arlington Road. Keep your eyes open, children of the Waste. Three Dogs' voice bent around static and metal and made it to the bus. Brandis tapped the radio once. We hear you. The immortal turned the paper over. On the back, a map bled through, a blue line leading to a circle. Numbers under it. He traced them with one finger. The texture was soft, worn thin by time and wind. They hid, he said. Brandis shrugged. Some still are. Vaults all over. Some good. Some... He stopped. The wind took the pause and filled it with paper noise. Flap. Flap. The immortal folded the halves and slid them into his coat. The sound of it, paper against cloth, was small and private. From the road came a new noise. Boots. More than two sets. The dog lifted its head. A patrol came into view, three figures in mismatched armor with a pack Brahmin plodding between them. A woman with a scarf raised her hand when she saw Brandis. Brotherhood, she called. We're trading south. Brandis raised a hand back. Road's hot near the station. Everything's hot, the woman said. She looked at the immortal. You look colder than most. He did not answer. He listened. The wind ran through the bus and made the metal ribs sing. The poster scraps in his pocket whispered when he moved. The patrol passed, their boots grinding the same gravel he had crossed. The Brahmins snorted and left a wet print behind. When they were gone, Brandis spoke again. You keep things like that? He asked, nodding at the immortal's coat. I keep what survives, the immortal said. The wind tore the last shred from the bolt and carried it off. The bus was bare now, its rusted side exposed to sun and air. They stood and listened to the place breathe. The radio muttered. The dog scratched at a flea and settled. The immortal stepped away from the bus and back toward the road. The sound of paper stayed with him, faint and persistent, like a memory that refused to lie flat. The bus lay on its side like something hunted there and left. Its windows were punched out, the metal skin blistered and peeled. One wheel still turned when the wind worried at it, a slow, lazy spin that made the axle creak. The immortal stood a few steps away and let the sound arrange the place for him. Flap, flap, flap. A sheet of paper was nailed to the bus's flank with a rusted bolt. The wind caught it and pulled over and over until the corners shredded into white threads. Each tug made a dry, papery snap. He moved closer. Gravel slid under his boots. The dog padded beside him, nose low, ears swiveling to every noise that didn't belong to the wind. The paper was a poster once, bright colors now dulled into dust. A smiling cartoon family stared out from beneath a cracked helmet logo. Beneath them, a word remained clear. Vault Tech. The letters were thick and cheerful, the kind meant to survive weather and fear. The wind lifted the bottom edge and slapped it back against the bus, again and again as if trying to peel the promise away. Flap, flap. The immortal touched the metal near it. Heat slept inside the rust, released into his palm. He leaned closer and listened past the wind. From inside the bus came another sound, a small skitter, claws or nails tapping on steel. Something breathed in short bursts. The dog growled, low. Easy, a voice said from behind him. Those buses got nests sometimes. Paladin Brandis stood with his rifle slung low, not aimed. His armor clinked softly when he shifted. The radio on his shoulder muttered to itself, distant and tinny. Found you at the station and figured you'd keep walking, Brandis said. Everyone does. The immortal did not turn. His eyes stayed on the poster. The smiling faces had lost their eyes to sun and grit. The wind lifted the paper higher this time and tore a longer strip free. Flap, flap. What is this place? The immortal asked. Brandis followed his gaze. Before? Roadside. Bus broke down. After? Same thing. Just quieter. He hesitated. Vault-Tec sold people a hole to hide in. Said it would last forever. And it did not. Brandis made a sound in his throat that could have been a laugh. Nothing does. The skittering inside the bus stopped. A rat the size of a boot slid out through a tear in the floor and ran for the culvert. The dog chased it 2 steps and thought better of it. Wind lifted the poster again. The immortal reached up and tore the bolt free. The paper came with it, ripping down the middle. He held the 2 halves. The smiling family split into strangers. The radio on Brandis' shoulder grew louder, as if offended by silence. And if you're just tuning in, that howl you heard wasn't the wind. Raiders spotted near the old Arlington Road. Keep your eyes open, children of the Waste. 3 dogs' voice bent around static and metal and made it to the bus. Brandis tapped the radio once. We hear you. The immortal turned the paper over. On the back, a map bled through. A blue line leading to a circle. Numbers under it. He traced them with 1 finger. The texture was soft, worn thin by time and wind. They hid, he said. Brandis shrugged. Some still are. Vaults all over. Some good. Some... He stopped. The wind took the pause and filled it with paper noise. Flap. Flap. The immortal folded the halves and slid them into his coat. The sound of it, paper against cloth, was small and private. From the road came a new noise. Boots, more than 2 sets. The dog lifted its head. A patrol came into view, 3 figures in mismatched armor with a pack Brahmin plodding between them. A woman with a scarf raised her hand when she saw Brandis. Brotherhood, she called. We're trading south. Brandis raised a hand back. Road's hot near the station. Everything's hot, the woman said. She looked at the immortal. You look colder than most. He did not answer. He listened. The wind ran through the bus and made the metal ribs sing. The poster scraps in his pocket whispered when he moved. The patrol passed, their boots grinding the same gravel he had crossed. The Brahmins snorted and left a wet print behind. When they were gone, Brandis spoke again. You keep things like that? He asked, nodding at the immortal's coat. I keep what survives, the immortal said. The wind tore the last shred from the bolt and carried it off. The bus was bare now, its rusted side exposed to sun and air. They stood and listened to the place breathe. The radio muttered. The dogs scratched at a flea and settled. The immortal stepped away from the bus and back toward the road. The sound of paper stayed with him, faint and persistent, like a memory that refused to lie flat. Hammering made the town. It came in uneven bursts, 3 quick strikes, a pause, then a heavier blow that rang longer than the rest. The sound rolled across the scrap walls and bounced back, turning the whole settlement into a box of echoes. The immortal stopped at the gate and let the rhythm draw the shape of the place inside his head. Tin roofs rattled with each strike. A ladder squealed. Somewhere a saw whined and gave up. Megaton rose from the dust like a heap of prayers welded together. Airplane wings leaned against bus doors. Rusted pipes climbed the walls and went nowhere. In the center, half buried in dirt and reverence, sat the bomb. Dogmeat patted at his heel, tail low, ears twitching to the metal chorus. Hold up, a voice called from the catwalk. Don't come any closer. Boots scraped. A man in a brown coat leaned over the railing with a rifle braced against his shoulder. His star badge flashed dull in the sun. Sheriff Lucas Sims. The immortal raised his hand slowly. The sound of cloth moving was small against the hammering. Sims squinted. You human? The immortal did not answer. Another hammer strike boomed, closer now. The sound came from a woman standing over a workbench made of license plates. She wore a vault suit tied at the waist and safety goggles too big for her face. Moira Brown. Oh, new person, she said, loud enough to wrestle the hammering for attention. You look, shiny, like a robot. Are you a robot? The immortal tilted his head. The hammer paused. The silence felt heavier than the noise had. Sims descended the stairs, boots thudding on steps that answered each footfall with a hollow complaint. We get synths sometimes, he said, and ghouls, and liars who say they're traitors. The immortal listened to the town, heartbeats hid under the metal noise. Water dripped somewhere near the bomb, slow and patient. The hammering started again, a man on a roof driving sheet metal into place with anger and a bent nail. I am not metal, the immortal said. Moira leaned closer, goggles squeaking. You don't blink much. Dogmeat sat and scratched at his ear. A man with a shaved head and tattoos stepped up beside Sims. Could be a mutant spy, he said. Super mutants sent one through last week. The immortal's jaw tightened. The hammer struck again, too close to his ear this time. The sound made a line through his thoughts. "Easy," Sims said. "No one's shooting yet." The immortal looked past them at the bomb. Its casing was pitted. Wires crawled from it like roots. Someone had hung prayer beads from a fin. "What is that?" he asked. Moira clapped her hands once. "That's our atomic blessing. Don't touch it. Ever." The hammering faltered, then resumed. Faster. Sims followed his gaze. "It's why we're here. Keeps the raiders nervous." A gust of wind shoved through the gate and rattled everything that could rattle. Scraps sang in a dozen voices. The immortal's ears filled with the town's music. Hammer on steel, boot on ladder, wind on tin. The low talk of people who had learned to speak over noise. Moira circled him. "You smell like storms," she said, "and not like radiation, which is weird. Usually people smell like radiation." Sims held up a hand. "We don't take in as strangers without questions." The immortal looked at Dogmeat. The dog's ears tipped toward the sound of the hammer again. The pattern was wrong, too frantic now, like someone trying to nail down a thought. "I want water," the immortal said. Moira beamed. "We have water, kind of. It's filtered, mostly." A man on the roof dropped his hammer. It hit the ground and made a sound like a bell being drowned. Sims jerked his head up. "Mitch, you okay?" "Slipped," a voice called back. "Hands are shaking." The immortal moved before Sims finished speaking. He crossed the square in a breath and caught the ladder as the man lost his grip. The ladder banged against the wall. The man slid down into his arms, eyes wide. "I thought," the man said, "I thought I was gone." The immortal set him down. The hammering had stopped. Every ear in Megaton leaned in. Moira's goggles flashed. "Wow," she said. "That was fast." Sims stared. "You trying to prove something?" "I heard him," the immortal said. "His hands." Sims studied him. The wind threaded through the scrap and made the bomb's fins hum. "All right," Sims said at last. "You can get water. And a place to sit. You cause trouble, I cause you pain." Moira bounced on her heels. "Come on, I've got a chair that only collapses sometimes." As they walked, the hammering resumed. Slower now. Each strike sounded careful, like a promise not to rush. Dogmeat trotted ahead. The immortal followed, letting the town's metal voice wrap around him. The sound pressed in from every side, a living thing built from broken pieces. The light would not shut up. It buzzed from a wire cage screwed into the ceiling of the clinic. A shipping container turned sideways and gutted into something pretending to be clean. The sound was thin and constant, a mosquito trapped in glass. Every few heartbeats it stuttered, as if deciding whether to die. The immortal stood just inside the doorway and listened to it argue with itself. Zzz, zzz, zzz. The walls sweated rust. A curtain made from stitched feed sacks divided the room. On the other side, someone coughed into a tin cup. Doc Church sat on a stool that leaned to the left. His glasses were cracked down the middle and taped. A tray of instruments lay beside him. Pliers, a bone saw, a needle bent at the eye. "Well," Doc Church said, peering at the immortal like a puzzle that bit back. "You bleed red. That's a start." Moira Brown leaned against the doorframe, hands clasped behind her back. Her goggles were pushed up into her hair. "I told you he wasn't a ghoul," she said. "Ghouls smell like soup left in the sun." The immortal did not look at them. He looked at the light. Its buzzing filled the small room and pressed against his ears. Under it, another sound, the soft, irregular drip of water into a bucket. Doc Church lifted a Geiger counter from the table. When he brought it close, the buzzing of the light was joined by the insect chatter of the machine. Tick, 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 tick. The sound slid under the immortal's skin. His stomach tightened in a way it had not in years. "Hold still," Doc Church said. "Or don't. Makes no difference to the machine." He ran the counter along the immortal's arm. The needle jumped. The light flickered. Moira leaned in. "Oh, it's louder near your hand. That's where the ghoul blood splashed you, right?" The immortal flexed his fingers. The skin there was pale and too smooth, like wax warmed by breath. Doc Church frowned. "That's not how it's supposed to work," he muttered. "Radiation don't usually argue with..." Whatever you are. The immortal closed his eyes. The buzzing light grew larger in his head. The tick of the counter found a rhythm with it, a bad harmony. What is this sickness? He asked. Doc Church hesitated. Radiation. The word landed like a nail. It's in the air, Moira said cheerfully. In the water, in people. It makes things creative. The immortal's jaw tightened. It hurts me. The light sputtered. For half a second, there was only the drip of water. Doc Church leaned closer, squinting at the hand. You heal fast, he said, but not here, not right here. He touched the edge of the pale patch with a gloved finger. The immortal felt it, a cold that did not belong to touch. Moira's voice dropped. So, you're not immune? No, the immortal said. The word tasted like iron. Outside, hammering started again. The sound came through the thin metal wall and tangled with the buzzing light. The clinic felt smaller. Doc Church set the Geiger counter down. It kept ticking on the table, arguing with the light. I can clean it, he said. Flush it. Might slow whatever this is doing to you. Won't stop it. The immortal looked at the bucket of water. Its surface trembled with each buzz of the light. Do it, he said. Doc Church drew up liquid in a syringe that had seen better wars. The needle slid into skin that did not want it. The immortal felt the water spread, cold and sharp. The buzzing grew louder. Moira shifted her weight. This is exciting, she said, then winced. Sorry, medical excitement. The immortal's vision blurred at the edges. Not darkness, noise. The light's hum filled the space between thoughts. What happens? He asked. If I stay? Doc Church did not answer right away. He pressed gauze to the injection site. You'll keep taking damage, he said finally. Slow, quiet, like rust. The immortal listened to the word. Rust. The walls agreed with it. Outside, Sheriff Sims's voice rose in argument with someone. The sound slid through the door and broke apart against the buzzing. Moira hugged herself. You could get lead-lined clothes, she said, like the Brotherhood uses. The Brotherhood does not share, the immortal said. Doc Church snorted. That's the truest thing said all day. The light flickered again. The buzzing dipped, then returned, angrier. The immortal stood. The room tilted for a moment, then steadied. The pale patch on his hand still tingled, a slow complaint. So the world itself wounds me, he said. Moira nodded. Pretty much. Outside, a bell clanged. Megaton's warning bell, tested for the 100th time. The sound rolled through the scrap walls and found the clinic. The immortal walked to the door. The buzzing light followed him to the threshold and stayed behind, trapped in its cage. He stepped into the town's metal music, the hammering, the wind, the distant radio voice. All of it layered over the quiet tick still echoing in his bones. Radiation did not care what he was, and now he could hear it. Static lived in the shelves. It whispered from a pile of holotapes stacked where books had once leaned, each cartridge humming faintly with trapped voices. The immortal stood in the doorway of the ruined library and let the sound crawl over him. It was a dry, nervous noise, like sparks trying to remember how to be fire. The roof had collapsed in polite sections, letting in pale light that fell in rectangles across the floor. Dust floated through it, slow and patient. Shelves lay on their sides, ribs of wood and bent metal. A sign that once said history hung by one screw and twitched whenever the wind touched it. Crackle, hiss, crackle. Moira Brown's boots scuffed behind him. I love this place, she said. So much learning just laying around, waiting to be poked. A man in Brotherhood armor stood near a desk that had melted into itself. Scribe Rothschild. His laser rifle leaned against a chair with no seat. He was feeding a holotape into a battered player the size of a lunchbox. Careful, Rothschild said. These recordings are older than Megaton. Some of them still think the war is tomorrow. The immortal moved between shelves. His fingers brushed spines swollen by water. The static grew louder near a pile of tapes marked with yellow paint. Crackle. He knelt and picked one up. The plastic was warm from sun. When he pressed the play button, a voice leapt out, wrapped in noise. Evacuate immediately. Repeat, this is not a drill. The words bent around the crackle like bones under cloth. Moira leaned over his shoulder. That's pre-war emergency broadcast. I found one once that told people to hide under desks. The immortal turned the tape over. The label was handwritten, the ink bled thin. Day 1. He slid it back and took another. Power plants offline. No contact with Europe. Static chewed the ends of the sentences. The immortal closed his eyes. The crackle filled the space where thoughts should be. Under it, the faint echo of panic, pressed flat by time. Rothschild cleared his throat. You're interested in history? I am interested in endings, the immortal said. Moira made a small sound. Oh, that's heavy. The player sputtered. A new voice surfaced. Vault Tech assures all citizens. The crackle spiked, then settled. The promise inside the noise sounded practiced, like a prayer read too many times. The immortal's jaw tightened. He heard the wind outside whirring at broken windows. It mixed with the static until the library sounded like a throat trying to speak. Rothschild crossed his arms. We catalog what we can. Most of it is lies people told themselves while the world burned. Moira tilted her head. Some of it's recipes. Static popped. The immortal walked deeper, toward a collapsed reading table. Under it, more tapes hid in shadow. When he touched them, the crackle sharpened, eager. A new voice burst free. Sirens in the city, no trains running. Another. Children in the tunnels. Another. God help us. The immortal's hand curled around the last tape. The plastic creaked, his ears filled with the layered crackle of 1,000 small disasters. They did this to themselves, he said. Rothschild's mouth twitched. Yes and no. Same as always. Outside, a vertibird passed, its rotors chopping the air into blunt pieces. The sound slid through the broken walls and tangled with the static. Moira stepped closer. You don't like it here, do you? The immortal slid the tape back into the pile. The crackle softened, offended. I know wars, he said. I do not know this. Rothschild nodded toward the tapes. That's what happens when war learns to glow. Static flared as the players switched tracks. We thought the vault would open. The immortal flinched. The sound of it was wrong. Hope should not survive inside plastic. He turned away from the player and walked to a window. Outside, the street was a long scar. Wind pushed a scrap of paper along it, making a faint whispering noise. Behind him, Moira pressed a button. The static cut out for a heartbeat. Silence rushed in. It felt heavier than noise. Then the crackle returned, softer now. Rothschild watched the immortal's reflection in the broken glass. You're not from here, he said. No, the immortal said. You don't look like the Enclave. You don't move like a raider. You don't rot like a ghoul. The immortal listened to the static again. This world remembers its death, he said. It repeats it. Moira hugged a stack of tapes to her chest. Maybe that's so we don't forget how to be alive. The player spat out the tape with a dry click. Rothschild picked it up and slid it into a case. We keep them, he said, noise and all. The immortal turned back to the shelves. The crackles shifted as he moved, following him like an argument. He chose one last tape and pressed play. If anyone hears this, static swallowed the rest. The immortal stood still while the noise spoke around the missing words. Engines made the border. They idled in a crooked line across the highway, half a dozen pre-war husks chained nose to nose. Their motors coughed and growled like sick animals, the sound low and constant, a vibration that crawled through cracked asphalt and into bone. The immortal stood at the bend in the road and let the rumble draw the shape of the checkpoint for him. Rumble. Clatter. Rumble. Smoke leaked from a truck with no hood. A bus engine had been grafted onto a pickup and ran too hot, ticking as it cooled and overheated again in quick, angry cycles. The air smelled of oil and old rubber. Dog meat stopped beside him, ears flat. The immortal rested a hand on the dog's neck and felt the tremor of the engines travel through muscle and fur. A man stepped out from behind a car door bolted upright like a shield. He wore shoulder pads made from stop signs and a helmet cut from a fire hydrant. A chain of tin cans rattled at his waist. Road tax, the man called over the engine noise. Everybody pays. Behind him, more raiders lounged on the hoods of vehicles. One tuned a guitar with 3 strings, each note swallowed by the rumble. Another poured something clear into a cup and laughed too loud. At the center of it all sat a throne made from welded bumpers and a shopping cart. On it reclined a woman with a scar down her cheek and a crown of hubcaps wired into her hair. Red Lucy. She leaned forward, boots thumping on metal. "What's this?" she said. "A man and a dog?" The immortal walked closer. The engines thickened, a wall of sound pressing against his ears. He heard pistons misfire. He heard a fuel pump begging for mercy. "I pass," he said. Red Lucy barked a laugh. "Everybody passes after they pay." A raider revved a motorcycle without wheels. The roar leapt and fell. Dog meat growled. The immortal listened to the engines instead of the voices. One truck's rhythm stuttered. Another dragged its idle too low, like a throat losing breath. He stepped to the side of the bus engine truck and put his hand on the metal. The heat was alive. The vibration crawled into his palm. Red Lucy frowned. "Hey, don't touch my—" He drove his fist into the hood. Metal dented inward. The engine coughed once and died. The sudden quiet hit like a dropped curtain. One rumble vanished. The others kept going, louder for it. A raider fired a warning shot. The crack bounced off steel and got lost in the engines. The immortal moved. He crossed the space between two cars and tore a chain loose from a door. The links rang and fell silent. He swung the chain once and caught a raider across the chest. The man flew backward into a stack of tires. Red Lucy stood. Her throne creaked. "Kill him!" Engines roared in answer. A truck surged forward, its driver grinning through a missing windshield. The immortal waited until the last second and stepped aside. The truck slammed into a barricade of cars and died with a wet sound. Another engine failed. Smoke thickened. Dog meat darted in and out, snapping at ankles. The guitar hit the ground and made a small, final twang. Red Lucy grabbed a rifle from her throne and fired in a long, wild line. Bullets chewed the road. The immortal felt the wind of them pass his coat. He leapt onto the throne and kicked it over. Hubcaps clattered. Red Lucy fell hard, her crown skidding away. The engine's rumble filled the space where her shout had been. She rolled and came up with a knife made from a saw blade. "You don't belong here," she said. "I know," he said. He caught her wrist. The blade rang against a bumper and dropped. Her breath came fast, loud even over the motors. "You think you're a monster?" she said. "This road's full of them." He released her and stepped back. Around them, raiders hesitated. One engine sputtered and died. Another kept going, stubborn and alone. From somewhere beyond the checkpoint, a radio found them. "Word on the road is the toll booth's closed today, folks." Three Dog's voice bent around the rumble. Red Lucy spat dust. "Get out," she said, "before I change my mind." The immortal turned and walked through the line of cars. Dog meat followed. Behind them, the last engine cut off. Silence crept in like a tide. The wind took over, moving loose chains and scrap. The checkpoint was only a pile of metal again. The road opened. The immortal stepped onto it and felt the echo of engines fade from his bones. The radio perched on the hill like a sentinel. Its antenna was bent, half twisted, its wire fraying against the wind. The immortal climbed slowly, boots crunching on gravel and scattered shards of glass. Each step made a note in the air. High, brittle, metallic. Tick, 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 tick. Dog meat patted at his side, tail low, ears swiveling. Even the dog seemed to feel the tension vibrating from the radio tower, as if the metal skeleton of the structure whispered warnings to the world around it. At the summit, the immortal paused. The tower leaned slightly, its legs splayed into the dirt like the roots of some iron tree. Cables ran down its sides, frayed and buzzing with static, humming in tune with the wind. A small generator sputtered at its base, coughing smoke in lazy gray streaks. He crouched beside it and ran a gloved hand over the wire mesh. The surface was cold, pitted, and sticky with dust that stuck to skin like ash. The vibrations through metal carried a message. Something alive, moving, waiting. The radio crackled. "This is Ranger Tells, broadcasting to any survivors east of the capital. Repeat, super mutant activity detected near Tenpenny Tower." The signal bent around the tower's skeletal frame lost and regained, spitting static with every break. The immortal listened, head tilted, each word, each burst of noise pressed against his eardrums like a pulse he did not own. Super mutants, Dogmeat said in a bark. Or maybe that was his own interpretation. The way animals sometimes translate the world for humans. The immortal flexed his fingers, feeling faint twinges in the muscles beneath his skin. A reminder that even immortals could still sense injury here. Not death, not yet. But friction, resistance, vulnerability. He climbed the lower rungs of the tower to see the horizon. The wasteland stretched out in pale lines, ruined highways, skeletal buildings, and distant fires that stuttered like candle flames. The faint pulse of smoke from settlements drifted into the distance, carrying with it the scent of ash, cooking meat, and something foul beneath it all. Radiation, invisible, relentless. The radio crackled again. Settlers are advised to avoid the river bend. Heavy patrols moving east. Rangers cannot guarantee safety. The immortal's gaze sharpened. Each syllable carried meaning beyond its surface. He could feel the rhythm of this place, the way danger moved, the way sound bounced off rubble, the way life clung to the edges of ruin. Below the tower, a scavenger moved along a collapsed highway overpass. She waved a makeshift flag to signal someone unseen. The wind caught it, pulling the fabric into jagged angles. The immortal watched the movement, noting the patterns, the way the body shifted weight, how sound traveled across open space, the subtle vibrations of metal resonating in the skeleton of the overpass. He crouched to inspect the generator. The faint hum blended with the wind, static, and distant gunfire. Layers of sound that mapped the wasteland in invisible contours. He touched the metal, warm from friction, alive with energy, a heartbeat of machine in decay. The radio gave another burst. Repeat. Super mutants east of Tenpenny Tower. Containment recommended. He exhaled slow. The breath carried the tang of dust and faint ozone from the generator. His tongue tasted copper. His senses, heightened beyond normal, parsed the air. Wind shifting over metal. A rat scuttling in the rubble below. The low growl of dog meat sniffing along the rocks. He stepped back, listening to the signal break into static. It was a pulse of warning and guidance. The world was telling him something he had not asked for, but needed to know. From the far side of the hill, movement. A group of raiders climbing the ridge, unaware of his presence. Their boots scraped rock, echoing with the rhythm of the wind. The immortal's eyes narrowed. Every step was loud in his mind. Every motion of the raiders marked a threat, any pattern he could exploit. He descended toward them with silent precision, one hand brushing the radio tower for balance. The faint hum of the generator under his fingertips carried through his body, syncing with his heartbeat. Dogmeat followed, low and careful, ready to react. The radio hissed again, fading in and out, a ghost voice in the wind. Super mutant army moving east. Repeat, east. Survivors should evacuate immediately. The immortal paused and let the words settle in. They were not just warnings. They were a map, a rhythm, a pulse that told him where to move next. The wasteland spoke in frequencies and echoes, and he had learned to listen. The wind shifted again, stirring the loose gravel and metal shards beneath his boots. The distant hum of the generator, the crackle of static, and the faint rumble of approaching raiders merged into one layered chord. It was alive. It demanded attention. It required action. He stepped into it. The immortal's shadow stretched long across the gravel, one with the metal tower behind him. Dogmeat at his side, alert. The radio crackled one last warning into the wind, static shredding the edges of each word. Evacuate east, super mutants advancing. He moved down the hill, absorbing the soundscape, ready to cross the next threshold. The world was a warning, and he had heard it. The wasteland was alive, and now so was he. The tunnel smelled of wet stone and old smoke. The immortal crouched at the mouth, letting his eyes adjust to the dim light. The walls were slick with seepage, water running in rivulets that echoed in the hollow, steel-reinforced vault. Every footfall made a soft slap on the concrete floor, a note in the song of decay. Dogmeat stayed close, nose to the ground, ears swiveling. The soft scrape of his claws against the stone joined the faint drip, a metronome for the space. Farther inside, a scuffle. Nails clicking across metal plates. The low groan of joints moving wrong, breathing ragged and wet. Feral things, or something worse. The immortal moved forward. His boots made no sound. He listened to the rhythm of the tunnel. Each drop of water carried distance. Each echo painted the space in sharp relief. Rats scuttled ahead, disturbed by the wind that found its way through cracks in the reinforced concrete. The immortal felt the vibration through the soles of his boots. His body parsed it, mapping the tunnel in instinct and muscle memory. A low growl answered. The creatures stepped into view, mutants twisted by radiation and hunger. Their flesh bubbled and stretched, bones warped under their skin, eyes white and bright, mouths that seemed to gnaw at air as much as at anything else. They were built for terror, but he had walked through centuries of monsters. One moved toward him. Its steps were uneven, knees locking at odd angles. Its breathing was a rough rasp, filled with the stink of decay. The immortal tilted his head. He could hear the alignment of its weight, the minor squeak of cartilage against tendon, the soft slide of its claws on concrete. The world spoke in sound, and he answered. He struck first. Movement too fast to track. One mutant hit the wall with a thud, bones snapping under precision he could not have achieved without centuries of practice. The others lunged. He sidestepped, catching a wrist, bending it back until the creature shrieked, a wet, hollow noise. Drip, drip, drip. The water mocked them all, marking time in the dark. Dog meat snapped at the heels of one mutant and pulled back growling. The immortal moved beside him, eyes scanning, ears picking up the faintest misalignment of sound. One mutant swung a crude club. He caught it midair with one hand and bent the attacker's arm until the joint gave a note of surrender. Another tried to circle him, moving through shadows. He pivoted, landing a kick that sent the thing into a wall, leaving a wet smear across the concrete. The echoes multiplied. Each strike produced a cascade of responses from stone, metal supports, and distant debris. He could feel the space as much as see it. From the back of the tunnel, a screech. The rest of the mutant pack hesitated, confused. The immortal tilted his head toward it. A narrower corridor led to a drop-off, where a human survivor clutched a torch, trembling. He adjusted his stance, listening to the rhythm of the mutants, the faint drip, their uneven breathing, the slight vibration of the concrete. It all told him where they would strike next. One mutant charged again. He sidestepped, grabbing its momentum, and threw it into the wall with enough force to crack concrete. The impact rang in his chest, vibration traveling up his arm. He ignored it. The survivors edged backward, eyes wide. One coughed. The sound carried down the tunnel, breaking the mutant's coordination for a fraction of a second. He moved forward, intercepting another charge. The mutant's teeth clamped onto the air where his neck had been a moment ago. A twist, a snap. The sound was sharp, short, final. The tunnel fell quiet, save for the water and the low hiss of breath from the immortal and Dogmeat. He looked back. The survivors were staring, frozen. One, a young woman with a scarf fraying at the edges, swallowed audibly. You saved us," she said. He did not respond. His eyes were on the passage ahead, where more shadows lingered, waiting for the next sound to give them away. The low drip continued. Every drop echoed, and he cataloged it. The tunnel had a voice now, shaped by water, stone, and fear. He listened to it, letting it guide the movement forward. A faint hum reached him from deeper underground, ventilation or something worse. He paused, tilting his head. The pitch was uneven, a warning of misalignment, structural stress. The survivors moved cautiously, following him. Dogmeat padded between them, keeping ears flat. He advanced, one hand brushing the wall. Concrete was wet, pitted, alive with vibration. Every step, every sound, was a map he read with instinct. The tunnel narrowed. Rusted pipes arched overhead. The mutants would come again. He knew it. But he had heard their rhythm now. Every misstep they would make, every uneven weight distribution, every breath would speak before they struck, and he would be ready. The immortal exhaled, slow and controlled. Drip, drip, drip. The sound anchored him. Ahead, the faint glimmer of light marked the way to the next chamber. He moved toward it, dog meat at his heel, the survivors following silently behind. The wasteland waited in sound, and he was listening. The room smelled of metal and wet stone. The immortal stepped into the vault chamber, boots making soft, deliberate clicks against the concrete floor. Light streamed in through a half-collapsed ventilation shaft, catching the dust in the air and turning it into tiny, slow-falling stars. The walls were lined with shelves, empty now, but stained with the memory of thousands of cans, books, and tools that had been hoarded, forgotten, or consumed. Drip, drip, drip. A thin line of water traced across the floor, each drop sounding like a tiny bell in the still air. Dog meat padded quietly behind, nose low, tail alert. The immortal inhaled deeply. The smell of damp metal and something acrid in the stone burned lightly in his nostrils. In the corner, a figure stirred. Brotherhood scribe Rothschild stepped from behind a half-collapsed shelving unit, rifle slung loosely over one shoulder. His armor clinked softly with each movement. "You made it," he said, voice low. "This is the far side of the vault. Not many come this far." The immortal did not answer. His eyes were on the central platform. A makeshift lab had been cobbled from metal sheets and old crates. Canisters of radioactive material hummed faintly, their radiation tick punctuating the drip in the air. A Geiger counter sat on a crate, needle quivering like a nervous heartbeat. Crackle, tick, crackle. Rothschild followed his gaze. "This is where we study it," he said. "The radiation, it's alive in a way. Not like life you know, but it moves, it reacts, it waits." The immortal crouched near the platform. His fingers hovered above a glass vial. The surface of it felt cool through the dust, and the faint hum of energy pressed through the container into his palm. He flexed his hand. The tingling sensation reminded him of the gray things outside, the ones that had lunged at him in the tunnels. Radiation did not destroy. It twisted, it informed. It whispered. From above, a panel shifted, scraping against the ceiling. The sound made a skitter in the corner, and a small rat darted out, teeth gnawing at rusted metal. Dog meat barked once, low, warning. The immortal watched the rat vanish into a crack in the wall. He sensed the pattern, the rhythm of life clinging to decay. Rothschild gestured at a monitor built from scavenged parts. "We've mapped the tunnels above. Super mutant activity is increasing. They move in patterns, but they're unpredictable now. They're learning." The immortal stepped closer. His boots pressed against wet concrete, listening to the echoes. Each footfall sent vibrations up the floor, answering the pulse of the mutants above. He ran a hand along the platform. The vibrations through metal traced a story he understood. Every creak, every hum, every drip was a note. "What are you?" Rothschild asked quietly, almost to himself. "I survive," the immortal said. The scribe tilted his head. "Not just survive. You move like the world knows its own shape, like you understand the rhythm of it." A soft whistle of air announced another presence. Moira Brown stepped in from the doorway, goggles pushed up into her hair. "You're touching things you probably shouldn't touch," she said, trying to sound cheerful, though her eyes were wide. "Those vials, they'll change a person if they're exposed too long." The immortal studied her. "I already am changed." The room hummed with layered sound, dripping water, the skitter of unseen pests, the low vibration of radioactive canisters, and the faint static from the Geiger counter. Each sound informed him of the space, allowed him to navigate without misstep. A low rumble shook the concrete floor, not the vault itself, but above. Super mutants, movement. A patrol climbing toward the vault's entrance. The immortal could hear their misaligned breathing, the scrape of armor against concrete, the heavy step of boots too large for the rubble. Dog meat growled. Rothschild stiffened. Moira clutched a stack of papers against her chest. The immortal stood slowly. The radiation thrummed in response. The vault, the air, the stone, everything vibrated with warning. He tilted his head, listening for the pattern of the intruders. "They're coming," Rothschild whispered. The immortal nodded. He stepped toward the edge of the platform, feeling the pulse of the room, feeling the vibration of metal and stone, as though it were an extension of his own body. Outside, the first mutant's voice echoed. a wet, guttural rasp that carried through the ventilation shafts. Drip, drip, tick. The immortal flexed his fingers. The tingling in his palms sharpened into awareness, tracing the shapes and movements of those above him. Every sound became a map, every echo a guide. Moira whispered, "How do you do that?" "I listen," he said. "Everything talks." The mutants paused at the entrance, sensing the presence within. The vault held its breath. The Geiger counter's needle quivered faster, keeping rhythm with the approaching threat. The immortal crouched low, ready. Dog meat at his side, ears flat, the pulse of the vault beneath them, the static of the canisters, the drip of water, all of it came together, a living map of danger. He inhaled, slow and measured, feeling the rhythm of the wasteland inside the chamber. And when the mutants finally moved, every step, every scrape, every groan would already be known. The immortal had arrived at the point of no return. The tunnel above shuddered, and the first shadow fell into the vault. The first shadow hit the floor like wet cloth. The immortal had already counted the steps above. Each footfall was a story, a rhythm, a betrayal. He crouched on the edge of the platform, boots gripping concrete slick with seepage. Dog meat pressed close, low and tense, ears swiveling. Drip, drip, tick. The mutants spilled into the chamber in uneven lines. Their limbs bent wrong, joints snapping with each movement. Eyes white and wild, teeth gnawed air that tasted of decay. Their breathing rattled the walls, filling the vault with an unnatural percussion. The immortal moved first. One mutant reached for the platform railing. He caught its wrist midair, twisted with precision. A wet pop rang through the chamber. The mutant fell backward, chest hitting stone, groaning. Another lunged from the corner, a mass of muscle and mutated tissue. He sidestepped, grabbed its shoulder, and used the momentum to spin it into the wall. The impact was loud, metal scraping concrete. Drip, drip, tick. Dog meat darted in, snapping at the heels of another mutant. The creature hissed, jaws snapping. The immortal intercepted, catching its arm and bending it until the sound of surrender. Bone compressing, tendon tearing, sang a quiet note in the room. The vault itself seemed to respond. Water dripped faster from a rusted pipe above, hitting puddles that spattered in a rhythmic counterpoint to the mutant's struggle. The Geiger counter's needle quivered, a frantic heartbeat in sync with the chaos. A group of three moved together, charging with a crude coordination, teeth bared. The immortal tilted his head, reading the rhythm of their motion, listening to the micro-vibrations through the concrete platform. He stepped into the first, letting its weight carry it past him, then turned and struck the second with a sweep of his leg. The third barely realized it had been manipulated until it hit the floor hard. The room smelled of wet stone and iron. Blood pooled in shallow rivulets, steaming faintly in the cold air. The mutants' ragged screams harmonized with the drip and tick of the vault. A low rumble from the ventilation shafts above signaled reinforcements. The immortal's eyes narrowed. His hand brushed against the platform, feeling the vibration of each step above. "Stay behind me," he murmured to Dogmeat, whose hackles were raised, teeth bared. A mutant grabbed the edge of the platform and tried to pull itself up. He caught its arm, twisting with careful force. A wet pop echoed through the chamber. Its companion lunged blindly. He pivoted, drove a knee into its torso, and used the falling body to knock the first one away. The survivors, crouched near a sidewall, shivered in silence. Moira clutched her arms, goggles fogged. Rothschild's mouth was set in a thin line. He did not spare them a glance. He had learned long ago that attention was a luxury. He listened to the rhythm of movement, every shift in weight, every shuffle, every hiss. A mutant lunged at Dogmeat. The dog dodged, snapping, and the immortal caught the creature's arm, driving it against the wall. A final wet pop. Silence. The drip continued, slow. The Geiger counter hummed in protest. Another mutant emerged from the shadows, larger, more aggressive. Its eyes burned with the memory of the outside, its bulk vibrating the floor. He measured it, felt the pulse of its movement through the concrete, and acted with precision. A strike to the joint, a push, a roll. Its momentum carried it into a wall. Bones popped, the sound sharp and final. The vault trembled. Loose metal sheets overhead rattled. The mutants had learned nothing. Each mistake was known before it was made. Drip, drip, tick. The last one fell in slow motion, limbs flailing. He caught its arm mid-air, twisting until the sound of surrender, a wet, final note filled the room. Dogmeat barked once, short, victorious. The survivors exhaled. Moira whispered, He's not human. Rothschild had adjusted his glasses. Perhaps not, he said, but he understands the Wasteland better than anyone I've seen. The immortal crouched, listening. The vault's silence was heavy now, layered with the memory of motion. The drip continued, steady, patient. He rose, the mutants were gone, fallen and quiet. The survivors stayed back, uncertain how to approach, how to breathe in a space that had just witnessed violence rendered so precise it seemed inevitable. Outside, the faint hum of the ventilation shaft carried the pulse of the wasteland, the rhythm of danger, the echo of survival. He stepped to the edge of the platform and looked at the chamber. The water, the blood, the vibration of metal under his feet. It was all a map, a language he read with ease. Dogmeat padded to his side, nudging against him. The immortal's hand brushed the dog's fur, warm, alive, tethered to a world that still mattered. He listened again. The drip, the tick, the faint hum of radiation. Every sound told him where to move next. The wasteland's rhythm had shifted, and he had learned it. The vibrations started before he saw them. A low, rhythmic thrum ran through the concrete floor of the vault. Subtle at first, then stronger. A tremor of movement that rattled pipes and loose metal sheets above. The immortal crouched at the edge of the platform, feeling it through his boots, through his spine. Dogmeat pressed close, tail low, ears swiveling like satellite dishes. Tick, drip, thrum. The sound came from the ventilation shafts, a super mutant patrol. Their bulk was too large for the corridors, limbs scraping metal, armor clanging. They were learning, adapting, but still clumsy in their rhythm. The immortal tilted his head, listening. Every movement mapped itself to him. The uneven gait, the misalignment of shoulders and hips, the shuffle of oversized feet against concrete. He read the vibrations like a page of braille, each detail informing his next move. From the far side of the chamber, a massive shadow appeared first. Brutus, a hulking mutant, scars on his skin glowing faintly in the dim light. He swung a jagged club in the air, testing the space, releasing a guttural roar that vibrated through the vault. Drip, tick, thrum. The immortal rose slowly, eyes locked on Brutus. The room smelled of iron, wet stone, and decay. Sweat dripped from the mutants' bodies, hissing when it touched the cold concrete floor. Each step they took was a drumbeat in a cadence the immortal could follow, anticipate, and exploit. A smaller mutant lunged first. He caught it by the arm mid-air, twisting, using its momentum to throw it against a wall. The impact was sharp and final, bones snapping, echoing. Brutus growled. The vibration increased. Dust fell from the ceiling in slow, lazy sheets. Dogmeat barked low. Another mutant rushed from a side corridor. The immortal shifted, ducking under its swing, catching its wrist, and sending it tumbling into a puddle of water. The creature hissed, teeth snapping, claws digging shallow grooves in the concrete. He twisted again, the sound of surrender a wet, metallic note. Brutus swung his club. The metal rang like a bell. The immortal pivoted, letting the swing carry itself past him. He grabbed the mutant's shoulder, redirecting its weight, and used it to knock another down. Precision, rhythm, instinct. Every motion a map of the chamber's vibrations. Drip, tick, thrum. Rothschild and Moira huddled near a sidewall, eyes wide. "I've never seen someone move like that," Moira whispered. "It's like he knows what's about to happen before it does." Rothschild did not respond, just adjusted his glasses, watching, calculating. Brutus advanced. The hum of his mass against the floor was loud, reverberating through the chamber. The immortal measured the step, calculated the imbalance, and struck. One hand caught the club mid-swing, fingers curling around splintered wood. A twist, a pop. Brutus roared, staggering back. The other mutants tried to flank him, moving in desperation. He shifted, sidestepped, redirected momentum, and one by one they fell, bodies hitting concrete with wet finality. Dogmeat darted between them, snapping, pulling at ankles, ensuring none regained their footing. The thrum slowed. Brutus tried to roar again but staggered, unbalanced. The Immortal's hands moved like the vault itself, metal and stone responding to each subtle movement. He drove the mutant into a wall, armor scraping concrete, and Brutus collapsed in a heap. Drip, tick, drip. Silence fell except for the water, the tick of the Geiger counter, and the faint hum of radioactive canisters. Dust settled. The survivors exhaled in quiet relief, the sound swallowed by the cavernous chamber. The Immortal stood among the fallen, boots wet, fingers tingling from vibration, senses alive with every echo of the encounter. Dogmeat sat beside him, tongue lolling, ears still alert. Moira stepped forward, trembling. You didn't even look like you were trying. How can someone move like that?" He did not answer. His eyes scanned the chamber, reading the vibration of the concrete, the subtle shifts in the air, the leftover echoes of violence. Each drop of water, each scratch of metal, each breath of the survivors was part of the language he understood. Rothschild approached slowly, adjusting the Geiger counter. "They learned too late," he said quietly, "and even so, the lesson won't be enough next time." The Immortal knelt, brushing his hand along the platform's edge, feeling the subtle pulse of the vault itself. Every structure, every vibration, every echo was a guide. He had passed the point of no return. Outside, the wind whispered through broken vents, carrying the faint metallic scent of the wasteland. The vault had survived another intrusion, but it had also spoken to him. He rose, dust falling from his coat, eyes cold and precise. Dogmeat followed. The survivors watched silently, awe and fear tangled together. The super mutants lay still, broken by rhythm and instinct. The Immortal listened to the quiet afterward, hearing the pulse of the world beneath the ruin, and he understood. The corridor smelled of ozone and rust. The Immortal stepped from the vault into the open, his boots crunching on shattered concrete and loose gravel. The sunlight fell in thin, harsh beams through jagged openings in the collapsed ceiling. Dust floated in the air, stirred by the wind and by the shallow movements of survivors and machines alike. Dogmeat stayed close, tail low, ears swiveling at every distant sound. Above, a low rumble grew. Not a single engine, but multiple super mutants regrouping, raiders, something heavy scraping metal. The vibrations traveled through the floor, brushing against bone and muscle, telling him exactly where the threat would strike. Drip, clang, thrum. Moira ran ahead, goggles fogged with dust. "We have to get to the surface," she shouted, her voice thin and carried unevenly by the open corridor. "They're not done yet!" Rothschild fell beside the Immortal, rifle ready, eyes scanning the shadows. "They'll be smart this time, more coordinated." The Immortal's jaw tightened. He inhaled, feeling the vibration of every footstep, every scrape of metal, every shift in the air. The wasteland spoke through the ruins, and he moved to answer its language. From the far side, a hulking mutant emerged first. Its skin glimmered faintly with radiation burns, eyes glowing white in the dim light. Behind it, raiders pushed forward, makeshift weapons held tight, screaming in ragged, desperate rhythm. The corridor became a trap. Broken pipes hung overhead, water dripping onto rusted metal, each drop a tiny signal. Concrete cracks rattled as he passed, loose rubble skittering underfoot. The Immortal stepped forward, moving like a ghost through the chaos. His hand caught the mutant's wrist as it swung a club. A twist, a pop, the sound sharp and precise. The creature hit the wall and sagged, groaning. Dogmeat leapt at a raider, snapping teeth at the ankles, dragging him off balance. The Immortal pivoted, using the momentum of another mutant charge to drive it into a pile of debris. Bones cracked in wet bursts. Dust and dirt swirled around him in miniature tornadoes. Moira ducked behind a pillar, her hands shaking as she tried to help Rothschild steady a rifle. Sparks flew from metal rubbing metal overhead. The Immortal moved under them, ducking a falling pipe, catching it before it struck the floor, and using it to pin a mutant's arm against the wall. Drip, clang, thrum. Another wave of mutants poured through a fractured doorway. Their rhythm was rough but predictable. He read the vibrations through the floor, adjusting his stance, anticipating every step. One lunge too soon, he sidestepped, grabbed its shoulder, and threw it into a nearby wall. The impact resonated through the concrete. A raider fired a shot. The bullet cut the air with a whistle, grazing the wall where he had been a heartbeat ago. He pivoted, striking with the flat of his hand. The raider collapsed with a wet sound, rifle clattering across the floor. The corridor narrowed, forcing the remaining mutants together. He used it to his advantage, moving with grace and speed, redirecting their momentum against one another. Each strike produced a note, the snap of bone, the grunt of surprise, the metallic clang of weapon on pipe. Dogmeat barked, low and urgent, driving one mutant off balance so the immortal could finish the motion. Another creature swung a spiked club. He caught it midair, twisting the arm until the metal kissed concrete with a shrill scream. Dust rose, mixing with the faint tang of blood and rust. The survivors crept along the wall, frozen in the rhythm of his movement. Moira whispered, "He's not just fighting, he's orchestrating it." The final mutant, the largest of the group, advanced slowly. Its steps thudded against the floor, resonating through the corridor, announcing itself before it arrived. The immortal pivoted, meeting the weight with precision. He caught a swing, spun it aside, and drove his elbow into its chest. The mutant hit the wall with a final wet crack. Silence fell, heavy and alive. The drip of water continued, echoing through the empty corridor. Loose metal rattled softly overhead. The survivors exhaled slowly, realizing they were still alive. Rothschild adjusted his glasses, rifle lowered but ready. Moira clutched her chest, goggles streaked with dirt and sweat. The immortal stood, boots wet, fingers tingling from vibration. Dogmeat sat at his side, ears still alert. The corridor, though cleared, hummed faintly with the memory of the fight, the echo of bone, metal, and movement. The vault above remained silent, the ventilation hum a soft counterpoint. The wasteland had not ended the threat, but for now, he had survived it. He exhaled, slow and measured. The vibration of the floor, the hum of metal, the drip of water. They were all still there, guiding him. The wasteland had spoken again, and he had answered. From the far end of the corridor, light glimmered through a fractured doorway, fresh air, open sky, and the promise of surface. He stepped toward it, ready for whatever waited. Dogmeat at his heels, the survivors close behind. The fallout of the vault fight had ended, but the wasteland's pulse only grew stronger, and he could hear it. The sun hit like a hammer. The immortal emerged from the vault's fractured doorway onto the open wasteland. Dust swirled in pale columns, catching the light in slow, lazy spirals. Heat radiated off the cracked asphalt, rising in waves that shimmered over distant ruins. The smell of scorched metal and baked earth filled his nostrils. Dogmeat padded at his side, paws leaving dark prints on the sun-bleached ground. Rumble, clang, drip. The distant sound of engines and gunfire echoed across the broken landscape. Raiders had regrouped after the vault fight, and further off, the faint growl of super mutants vibrated through the dust. The immortal tilted his head, listening. Each note told him more than any map could. Moira and Rothschild followed cautiously behind. Moira clutched her goggles and muttered to herself, I thought the vault fight was over. I didn't realize it just opened the next chapter." Rothschild's rifle hung ready, his eyes scanning every ruined building. "Above ground is worse. The world itself fights back." The immortal adjusted the strap of his coat and walked forward, boots crunching on gravel and shattered concrete. Each footstep echoed lightly, a counterpoint to the distant growl of approaching raiders. He felt the vibration of the wasteland in his bones, a pulse from the cracked asphalt to the distant hills. A truck rounded a ruined overpass ahead, engine coughing and sputtering. Two raiders leaned from the cab, weapons raised. One fired a shot. The bullet cut through the air, whipping past the immortal's shoulder. He moved before the echo reached him, pivoting smoothly. The ground underfoot shifted slightly as he braced himself, and the bullet hit a twisted pipe instead, sending sparks into the sun. Dogmeat lunged, teeth clamping onto one raider's ankle. The other fired wildly, screaming in surprise. The immortal struck before the man could react again, twisting the wrist holding the rifle until the weapon clattered across the asphalt. Rumble, drip, clang. The truck lurched forward, but he caught the doorframe, twisting the driver out in one fluid motion. The engine sputtered and died, smoke spiraling lazily from the radiator. Dust covered everything, coating skin and clothing with fine grit. Moira gasped. "He doesn't even breathe like a normal person." Rothschild muttered, "He reads the world like it's a machine." The immortal didn't respond. He pivoted, listening to the movement behind him. Another group of raiders emerged from the ruins of a collapsed building, scavenged armor glinting in the sun. Their steps carried the rhythm of panic, too loud, too fast. He moved again, stepping through the space like he had rehearsed the choreography in his mind centuries before. One raider swung a pipe. He caught it midair and bent it back, the metal ringing against the concrete. Another tried to circle him. He sidestepped, grabbed a wrist, and used the momentum to fling the raider into a pile of rubble. The sound of impact echoed, mingling with the low growl of the truck engine cooling. The survivors followed at a cautious distance, moving over broken asphalt, ducking under twisted metal beams, stepping carefully around debris. Dogmeat stayed between them and the threat, hackles raised, growls low but constant. The immortal turned toward a jagged hill in the distance. A plume of smoke rose beyond it, black against the pale sky. Raiders were regrouping there, likely calling for backup. The sound of them reached him through the heat and dust. Boots striking rubble, metal scraping, faint shouts. He could measure their distance by vibration alone. He advanced, boots pressing gravel into soft arcs. The air shimmered, heat radiating in waves. The smell of scorched earth clung to his coat. Dust clung to the dog's fur. Every sense was alive, every pulse of the wasteland, feeding him information. Another shot rang out. The immortal ducked, letting the bullet hit a twisted pole. He grabbed the raider's arm mid-swing, driving him forward into another. A wet crunch marking impact. The survivors flinched, but they stayed behind him. The distant rumble grew, the air thick with the promise of more conflict. He could feel it in the vibration of the cracked asphalt underfoot, the hum of metal and ruined cars, the pulse of energy from the radiation lingering in the soil. He stopped for a moment and inhaled. Sunlight caught dust motes, turning them into a swarm of tiny sparks. The wasteland was alive, chaotic, and cruel. Yet through its rhythm, he could move, anticipate, survive. Dogmeat nudged his hand. He exhaled slowly. Ahead, the road twisted toward the smoke and the next wave of danger. The immortal adjusted his coat and moved forward, boots striking the cracked asphalt in rhythm with the pulse of the wasteland itself. The battle above ground had begun, and he was already listening to its every note. The canyon narrowed. The immortal moved down the cracked highway, flanked by jagged walls of concrete and twisted rebar. Sunlight poured in from the gaps above, sharp and hot, throwing long shadows across the rubble-strewn ground. Dust hung in the air, dancing in thin, lazy columns. Dogmeat patted at his side, ears pricked, nose low, tail tense. Rumble, clang, thump. The sounds came from every direction. Scavengers moving through ruins, distant engines, the faint growl of super mutants regrouping. Every vibration through the cracked asphalt carried information. Weight, distance, momentum. The immortal read it all with ease, each footstep syncing with the rhythm of the wasteland. Moira Brown stumbled slightly behind him, goggles fogged with dust and sweat. "I don't like this canyon," she muttered. "It feels trapped." "Good instincts," Rothschild said, adjusting his rifle. "This place funnels movement. There's nowhere to dodge if they coordinate an attack." The immortal's eyes narrowed. Ahead, a scavenger patrol emerged from the shadows of a collapsed overpass. Their armor was mismatched, faces painted in streaks of ash and soot. One raised a makeshift rifle and fired, a jagged bullet whistling through the heat-blurred air. He pivoted. The shot cut past him, ricocheting off a twisted pipe with a shrill clang. Dogmeat lunged, teeth clamping onto the leg of a raider. The immortal moved with precision, catching another raider's wrist mid-swing and twisting it until the sound of surrender rang hollow in the canyon walls. Drip, thump, clang. The ground underfoot vibrated with every movement. Loose gravel skittered under his boots. Concrete cracked beneath the pounding boots of approaching reinforcements. Dust rose in thin spirals, mingling with the acrid scent of smoke and oil. A hulking super mutant appeared from the overpass above, its shadow stretching across the canyon. Its eyes glowed white, body rippling with muscle and twisted bone. It swung a massive club in a wide arc. The immortal pivoted, catching the weapon midair and letting the mutant's momentum carry it into a pile of rubble. The impact sent shards of concrete into the air. Another raider charged from behind a collapsed billboard. He swung a jagged pipe. The immortal sidestepped, caught the pipe near its end, and used leverage to hurl the raider into a pile of twisted metal. The clang of impact echoed, harmonizing with the low rumble of the mutant above. Moira ducked behind a crumbling wall, clutching her goggles. He doesn't even sweat. How is that even? Rothschild cut her off with a whisper. Watch him. He moves like the world itself guides him. The canyon echoed with layered sound, drip from a broken pipe above. The thump of boots, the clang of metal, the faint hiss of heated asphalt. Each note carried data. He read it all. A second mutant lunged from the shadows, massive arms reaching. The immortal grabbed its forearm mid-swing, twisting it with precision until the creature crumpled against a wall. The thud resonated through concrete and metal alike. Dogmeat barked again, low and urgent, snapping at the heels of a raider trying to flank them. The immortal pivoted to intercept another, using the raider's momentum against him, sending him sliding across the gravel into a broken fence. Drip, thump, thrum. A third mutant appeared at the mouth of the canyon, roaring. Its bulk vibrated through the ground, announcing its approach before it struck. The immortal crouched, reading the vibration through the asphalt, the dust, the loose metal. He anticipated the strike, met the charge, and drove the creature into a pile of debris. The echo of bones breaking was sharp and final. The survivors moved with careful precision behind him, every footstep measured, every breath cautious. Moira clutched Rothschild's arm. I don't think I've ever seen someone move like that, she whispered. He did not answer. His focus remained on the next vibration. The scrape of metal, the faint shuffle of boots, the whine of engines in the distance. Every sound told a story. Every echo revealed a weakness. The final raider tried to circle them, swinging a spiked bat. He pivoted, caught the wrist, twisted, and used the momentum to fling the man into a twisted signpost. Metal screeched, wood splintered, and the canyon absorbed the sound, vibrating faintly in response. The canyon fell silent again, save for the faint drip of water, the hum of distant engines, and the irregular thump of Dogmeat's paws. Dust settled on boots, coats, and fur. Blood, sweat, and oil mingled in the air. The immortal stood among the fallen. The survivors exhaled slowly, realizing they were still alive. Rothschild lowered his rifle, adjusting his glasses. Moira wiped dust from her goggles, staring in awe. He tilted his head, listening to the canyon's pulse, the rhythm of metal, concrete, and movement lingering in the air. Each vibration told him where danger still waited, where life hid, and where the next threat would arrive. The canyon's echo faded, replaced by the faint, steady rumble of distant engines and the whisper of the wind over the cracked highway. He exhaled, slow and measured. Dogmeat nudged him, warm and solid. The survivors gathered behind him, silent but trusting. Ahead, the canyon opened into a sunlit expanse. Shadows stretched across the wasteland like memories of the fallen. He stepped forward, boots crunching over gravel and shards of concrete, ready for whatever awaited next. The wasteland was alive, chaotic, impatient, and he was listening. The ridge rose like a scar across the horizon. The immortal climbed it slowly, boots sinking into loose gravel and baked earth. Dust hung in the air, catching the pale light in thin, wavering columns. The wind carried the acrid smell of smoke, scorched metal, and something sour, rotting flesh from a distant kill. Dogmeat pressed close, ears swiveling, tail low. Every step transmitted vibration up through ankles and spine, mapping the ridge before his eyes could even see it. Rumble, thump, whine. Above, the faint hum of engines and the scraping of metal on rubble grew louder. Raiders had regrouped after the canyon fight, and super mutants lurked just beyond the ridge, biding their time. The immortal tilted his head, listening. Each movement, each mechanical whine, each misstep in the loose gravel was readable to him. The wasteland whispered in frequencies only he could parse. Moira Brown stumbled behind him, clutching her goggles against the wind. "This ridge, it's worse than the canyon," she muttered. "There's nowhere to hide." Rothschild adjusted his rifle, eyes scanning the horizon. "It's open. Visibility is high. They'll see us before we see them. That works for them." The immortal's jaw tightened. He didn't need to see. He felt the vibrations of the ridge, the subtle shifts in the loose rocks, the hum of distant engines. They formed a map he could navigate blindfolded. From the far side of the ridge, the first raiders appeared. They waved weapons, shouting, the echoes bouncing across the barren hills. One fired. The bullet cut the air, whining sharply. He moved before the echo reached him, pivoting to let the shot strike a jagged piece of rebar instead. Sparks flew. The metallic clang harmonized with the distant rumble of mutant growls. Dog meat darted at a raider's ankle, pulling him off balance. The immortal stepped forward, grabbing another raider's wrist mid-swing, twisting with precise force. The arm bent backward, a wet, final pop echoing across the ridge. The raider collapsed into dust and gravel. Drip, thump, whine. A hulking super mutant emerged from behind a ruined wall, its mass vibrating the ground. Its skin was mottled, burned, scarred. Its eyes glowed white. It swung a massive club, rattling loose stones. The immortal pivoted, using the mutant's momentum against it. He guided it into a pile of rubble. The impact sent debris scattering, clanging like a percussive storm. Moira ducked behind a jagged boulder, gasping. I don't understand. How does he move like that?" Rothschild whispered. "He doesn't fight. He reads the world. The motion, the vibrations, it's all mapped inside him." Another raider charged from the flank, a makeshift spiked bat in hand. The immortal sidestepped, caught the wrist, and drove the attacker forward into another. Bones snapped, metal rang, and dust swirled around them in spirals. Drip, thump, whine. The mutant above roared, the vibration of its voice traveling through loose gravel and concrete remnants. The immortal crouched low, tilting his head. He measured the rhythm of the steps, the micro shifts in weight, the vibrations along the ridge. One misstep, one unbalanced swing, and the world would provide the answer. He struck first. One raider hit the ground with a wet pop. Another flew backward into a collapsed wall of stone and metal. Dog meat barked, leaping at a mutant trying to charge. The immortal pivoted, redirected momentum, and the creature's bulk slammed against the ridge's slope. Moira gasped. "He's like, the ridge itself is part of him." Rothschild's mouth tightened. "Or he's part of it. Either way, the wasteland listens through him." A second mutant approached, larger and slower. Its arms swung wide, trying to anticipate movement. The immortal shifted his weight, caught one swing, and used it to drive the mutant into a jagged rock. The wet crunch of bone echoed across the ridge, a percussion that harmonized with the scraping of raider boots and the low growl of engines far off. Drip, thump, whine. The survivors huddled behind rocks and rubble, eyes wide, breath shallow. Moira clutched Rothschild's arm. We're still alive," she whispered. The immortal didn't respond. He moved through the ridge like water over stone, reading the vibration, anticipating the strike before it occurred. Another raider lunged, and he pivoted, twisting and hurling the man into a pile of loose rubble. The ridge fell quiet. Loose stones settled. The distant engines slowed as raiders and mutants retreated to regroup. The wind stirred dust into columns, carrying the acrid scent of battle. He stood tall, boots dusted with gravel and blood, fingers tingling from vibration. Dog meat nudged him, ears alert. The survivors exhaled slowly, alive but aware of the wasteland's unending rhythm. Ahead, the ridge sloped toward the open plains. Light shimmered over distant ruins, a reminder of both danger and possibility. The immortal exhaled slowly, letting the vibrations of the ridge fade into memory. The Wasteland had spoken again. He had answered. And now he moved forward. The plains stretched out like a scorched sheet of metal. The immortal stepped onto the open ground, boots crunching against gravel and shards of concrete. Dust rose in thin spirals around him, catching the low sun in pale glimmers. The air smelled of scorched earth and distant smoke, with a faint tang of ozone from exposed wires and melted metals scattered across the highway. Dog meat padded at his side, tail low, ears twitching at the distant hum of engines. Rumble, whine, crack. From the horizon, raider vehicles crawled over broken asphalt. Makeshift armor clanked with each movement. Engines coughed and sputtered, echoing over the empty plains. Beyond them, the faint vibration of super mutants trudging across the terrain joined the chorus. The immortal tilted his head, reading the rhythm of every approach. Every step, every metal scrape, every low growl told him what was coming before it arrived. Moira and Rothschild followed cautiously, adjusting their pace to the subtle pulse of the wasteland beneath them. Moira clutched her goggles, whispering, I feel like the world itself is waiting for him to move." Rothschild's hand tightened on his rifle. "He doesn't just fight, he predicts, he orchestrates." The immortal did not answer. His focus was on the horizon. The first raider vehicle lurched forward, wheels bouncing over twisted asphalt. A shotgun blast rang out. He pivoted, the shot striking a nearby signpost instead of him. Sparks flew, a sharp counterpoint to the low hum of distant engines. Dogmeat lunged, biting the raider driver's leg. The truck swerved, metal scraping against rubble. The immortal moved, pivoting with precision. He caught the gunman's arm mid-swing, twisting and sending him into a pile of broken concrete. The sound echoed across the plains, punctuated by the sputtering of the vehicle. Drip, crack, rumble. A hulking mutant emerged from behind a ruined overpass, skin mottled and scarred, eyes glowing faintly. Its massive fists swung in wide arcs. The immortal read the vibration through this ground, predicting the strike before it landed. He sidestepped, redirected the mutant's momentum into a nearby vehicle, which groaned and teetered on broken tires. The raider group tried to regroup, advancing in a staggered line. One fired a jagged rifle. He caught this wrist, pivoted, and hurled the man into the side of the vehicle. Bones cracked, metal shrieked. Dust swirled, hanging in the sunlit air like a storm suspended in motion. Moira ducked behind a twisted guardrail. "It's like he's part of the ground itself," she whispered, voice trembling. Rothschild did not answer, just adjusted his glasses. "The wasteland speaks through him." Another mutant charged from the shadows of a collapsed building. Its feet pounded the earth, each step sending vibration into the immortal's boots. He timed his move perfectly, catching the mutant's arm, twisting, and sending it stumbling into debris. The impact sent shards of concrete and rusted metal scattering. Drip, crack, rumble. Dogmeat barked low, driving a raider back into the open. The immortal pivoted, striking precisely, one fluid motion after another. The sound of metal striking bone and concrete created a rhythm in the plains, a percussion that the wasteland itself seemed to echo. A second mutant appeared, larger, slower, swinging a club like a pendulum. The immortal crouched, shifting his weight to feel the vibration in the ground. He met the strike, guiding the mutant into another, sending both tumbling into a crumpled vehicle. The sound of collision was sharp and final. The raiders tried a flanking maneuver, shouting in ragged rhythm. He anticipated it, pivoting and catching a swinging arm, redirecting momentum into a jagged pipe. The weapon clanged against metal with a shrill note, echoing across the open plains. Silence fell, heavy and alive. Dust swirled in thin spirals, blood and grit mixed with the sun-baked earth. The survivors exhaled slowly, realizing they were still alive. Moira adjusted her goggles, Rothschild's rifle lowered but ready. The immortal stood among the fallen, boots dusted with gravel, fingers tingling from vibration. Dogmeat nudged him, ears still alert. The plains were quiet now, but the distant hum of engines and low growl of mutants reminded him danger had not ended. He tilted his head listening. Every vibration, every echo, every whisper of movement told him where threats still lingered, where life clung to ruin, and where the next danger would emerge. The horizon stretched endlessly, Shadows of distant ruins flickered in the dying sun. The wasteland was patient. The immortal exhaled slowly, letting the vibration fade, feeling the rhythm of the plains settle underfoot. Ahead, the road continued, fractured but navigable. The survivors gathered behind him, silent, trusting. Dogmeat pressed close. The wasteland had spoken again. He had answered. And now the open plains awaited his next move. The horizon burned with the last light of day, pale gold fading into smoke-streaked violet. The immortal moved along the cracked highway, boots crunching over gravel and broken asphalt. Dust rose in lazy spirals around him, catching the wind and clinging to the edges of his coat. The air smelled of scorched metal, radiation, and faintly of charred flesh from some distant kill. Dogmeat patted at his side, low growl rumbling in his throat, ears pricked for danger. Rumble, crack, whine. From the far ridge, raider vehicles moved like predatory insects. Their engines coughed and spat, metal scraped metal, and the faint vibrations of super mutants trudging in the distance joined the pulse. The immortal tilted his head, parsing every note. The uneven thump of tires, the clank of scrap armor, the low hum of radiation in the soil beneath them. Moira Brown followed cautiously behind him, goggles streaked with dust. "I feel like we're walking into a trap," she said, voice thin and tense. Rothschild adjusted his rifle, scanning the broken landscape. "We are. But he's the one mapping it," he said quietly. "Every step they take, he already knows." The immortal did not respond. His focus was forward. A raider shot rang out, metal shrieking as the bullet struck a broken guardrail. He pivoted before the echo reached him. Sparks flew, dust swirled, Dogmeat leapt, teeth clamping onto the raider's ankle. The man fell, scrambling across broken asphalt. Drip, crack, thump. A hulking mutant emerged from behind a crumpled overpass, arms swinging wide. Its skin gleamed faintly with radiation burns, and its massive fists pounded the earth, sending vibrations up through the immortal's boots. He crouched slightly, feeling the rhythm, anticipating the strike before it arrived. The mutant swung. He sidestepped, twisted its arm, and redirected the momentum into a twisted vehicle, which groaned and teetered on collapsed tires. Another raider tried to flank them, swinging a spiked bat. He pivoted, grabbed the wrist, and used the momentum to throw the man into a jagged pile of rubble. Metal screeched, wood splintered, dust rising in a thin storm around them. Drip, crack, rumble. The survivors followed at a cautious distance, moving over fractured asphalt, ducking under twisted metal, stepping carefully around debris. Moira whispered, "It's like he doesn't even need to see them. He feels them." Rothschild nodded. "He reads the vibrations. The wasteland speaks and he answers." The largest mutant charged, a shadow stretching across the dying light. Its massive fists swung in arcs meant to crush. The immortal shifted his weight, timing the rhythm, pivoting with precision. He caught a fist mid-swing, used its momentum to drive the creature into another mutant, sending both crashing into the remnants of a rusted bus. The thuds echoed, resonating across the plains. Dogmeat barked, snapping at a raider trying to break the formation. The immortal spun, catching the weapon-wielding man's arm mid-air, twisting with precise force until the rifle clattered to the ground. Sparks flew from contact between metal and rock. Drip, crack, thump. The last raider, panicked and desperate, aimed a crude pipe rifle. He fired. The bullet cut the air. The immortal had already moved. He pivoted, ducking under the shot, and used the raider's momentum to hurl him into a jagged pile of rubble. Concrete cracked. Dust and grit rose into spirals. The mutant pack hesitated, regrouping, confused by the rhythm they could not match. The immortal's eyes scanned every vibration, footsteps scraping metal, the subtle shift of loose gravel. Each movement informed the next strike. Drip, crack, thrum. The plains fell silent, save for the faint hum of distant engines and the irregular thump of Dogmeat's paws. Dust swirls settling over boots, coats, and fur. The survivors exhaled, realizing that they had survived yet again. Rothschild lowered his rifle, adjusting his glasses. Moira wiped sweat and dust from her goggles, staring in awe. The immortal remained standing, Boots dusted, fingers tingling from the vibrations in the earth beneath him. Dogmeat nudged him, warm and alert. The plains were quiet now, but every vibration lingering underfoot reminded him the wasteland was patient. Danger would return. It always did. He tilted his head, reading the subtle pulses of the cracked asphalt, the lingering echoes of battle, the faint hum of radiation. Each beat told him where life clung, where threat lingered, and where movement would come next. The sun sank lower, streaking the sky with violet and rust, shadows lengthening across the broken landscape. Ahead, a ruined city glimmered faintly in the distance, the next stage of the Wasteland's challenge. He exhaled slowly. The survivors drew closer, trusting, following, alive, but aware of what the plains had just demanded of them. The immortal took a step forward, boots crunching on fractured asphalt, feeling the rhythm of the wasteland beneath him. Ahead lay ruin, radiation, and the pulse of life and death intertwined. And he was listening. The ruined skyline stretched across the horizon, jagged teeth of steel and concrete silhouetted against the faint glow of early twilight. The immortal stood at the edge of the cracked highway, boots pressing into gravel and loose asphalt. Dust and ash swirled around him, catching the last light in thin spirals. The air smelled of scorched metal, irradiated soil, and faint traces of smoke drifting from the city ahead. Dogmeat padded at his side, tail low, ears swiveling at every distant vibration. Rumble, crack, hum. From the ruined streets, faint noises echoed, metal scraping concrete, the shuffle of scavengers, the low groan of super mutants hiding in shadowed alleys. Every vibration, every echo carried information. The immortal tilted his head, parsing it all like a living map. He felt the rhythm of the wasteland in his bones, every pulse guiding his movement. Moira Brown and Rothschild approached, cautious but steady. Moira's goggles were streaked with dust, her chest rising and falling in rapid breaths. This is it, isn't it? The city. Rothschild kept his rifle raised, but lowered his shoulders slightly. It's what we've been moving toward, and it's worse than we imagined. The immortal did not answer. His eyes were fixed on the city, but his senses stretched farther, reading vibrations in the cracked asphalt, the hum of metal in collapsed buildings, the subtle shifts of air that betrayed movement. The wasteland had a pulse, and he was its interpreter. A small group of raiders stepped from a collapsed overpass, armor pieced together from rusted sheets and scavenged machinery. One fired a shot. The bullet cut through the dry air with a sharp whistle, striking a broken lamppost instead. He pivoted before the echo reached him. Sparks flew. Dogmeat leapt at a raider's leg, teeth sinking, growl vibrating low in his chest. The immortal stepped forward, catching another raider's wrist mid-swing, twisting and throwing him into a pile of rubble. The sound of impact echoed across the open space, mingling with the scrape of metal and the faint thrum of distant engines. Drip, crack, hum. From the ruins ahead, two hulking super mutants emerged, their massive forms silhouetted against the ruined city. One swung a spiked club. The immortal crouched slightly, reading the rhythm of its movement through the ground. He pivoted, redirected the swing into the mutant's companion, sending both crashing into a collapsed vehicle. Concrete and metal splintered, dust rising in lazy clouds. Another raider charged, wielding a jagged pipe. He pivoted, caught the weapon midair, and used the momentum to hurl the man into a rusted bus. Bones cracked, metal rang, dust and grit rose into the wind, spiraling in thin columns. Moira ducked behind a fragment of wall, muttering, "It's like he's part of the city itself." Rothschild's voice was low. "Or the wasteland flows through him. He moves with its pulse." The immortal advanced, pivoting to meet a mutant's charge. One swing of his arm, one shift of his weight, and the hulking creature hit a pile of rubble with a wet, final pop. The vibration reverberated through the cracked asphalt, echoing off nearby ruins. Drip, crack, hum. Dogmeat barked, snapping at the heels of a raider attempting to flank them. The immortal pivoted, twisting another attacker's wrist, sending him tumbling into debris. Sparks flew from metal and stone. The survivors followed, cautious but trusting, their rhythm now guided by his. The remaining super mutant roared, the vibrations shaking the loose rubble beneath their feet. The immortal crouched, reading the pulse of its weight, predicting the strike, meeting it with precision. He redirected its momentum into a collapsed wall. The structure groaned, metal screeching, concrete crumbling. The battlefield fell silent, the only sounds a faint drip of water from damaged pipes, the hum of radiation in the soil, and Dogmeat's paws on the gravel. Dust settled on boots and fur, blood and grit mixing with the sun-baked earth. The survivors exhaled slowly, alive, eyes wide with awe and relief. The immortal stood alone amidst the wreckage, boots dusted, fingers tingling from the vibrations underfoot. Dogmeat nudged him, warm and alert. The ruins of the city spread before him, a jagged labyrinth of metal, concrete, and shadow. Moira whispered, We made it. He made it. Rothschild nodded slowly, gaze sweeping the horizon. The wasteland survives, but so do we. And he's its voice now. The immortal tilted his head, listening to the pulse of the ruins. Every vibration, every echo, every breath of wind carried information about life, threat, and survival. The city was no longer just a ruin. It was a map, a language, a rhythm he understood. He exhaled, slow and measured, boots pressing into the cracked asphalt. Dogmeat pressed closer. The survivors lingered behind him, silent but trusting, knowing that they had passed through the crucible of the wasteland and survived. The horizon stretched endlessly. Shadows lengthened across the jagged skyline, and the last light of day painted the ruins in violet and gold. The wasteland had spoken again, and the immortal had answered. He took a step forward, boots crunching on fractured asphalt, feeling the pulse of the city beneath him. The survivors followed. The road ahead was uncertain, littered with danger and ruin, but he moved with the rhythm of the wasteland itself. The world waited, patient and unyielding, and he was ready.